The snowstorm screamed across the open plains like a living beast, tearing at the ragged dress of the weary woman as she trudged forward with 3 frightened children clinging to her. Her oldest boy gripped her arm, his thin body trembling from cold and hunger, while the curly-haired little girl pointed ahead with wide, tear-filled eyes, and the baby strapped to the woman's chest whimpered against the icy wind, each tiny cry a reminder that they were running out of time, hope, and strength. Yet she pushed on, driven by nothing more than a mother's desperate instinct to survive, until finally she saw him. Standing in the middle of the white-covered trail was a tall rancher with a hardened face shaped by years of work under the western sun, his arms folded across his chest, his hat dusted with falling snow, and his sharp eyes narrowing as he took in the sight before him. Puzzled by the trembling woman who looked as if she had walked straight out of a nightmare, she tried to speak but the cold stole her words, so she held up a small rusted locket, the only piece of her past she had left, and pointed in a direction that made no sense to him, but he could see the terror in her eyes, a terror that told him she wasn't wandering, she was running, and whoever or whatever she was running from was still out there, hidden somewhere in the vast frozen silence. He let his gaze sweep over the children, their cheeks raw from the wind, their clothes torn, their boots too thin for the winter, and something inside him, something he thought he had buried years ago after losing his own family, stirred painfully, reminding him that he was human before he was a rancher, and that no man with a beating heart could watch a mother crumble in the snow. The woman finally found her voice, choked and trembling, as she explained that her husband had died the previous summer, leaving her with nothing but debts and the constant threat of the cruel landowner who wanted to force her into working off money she didn't know, a man whose men had followed her for days, forcing her to flee with whatever she could carry, and though she had managed to escape into the mountains, the storm had trapped her, turning her flight into a deadly gamble that she was losing. The rancher listened silently, jaw tight, thinking of the cruel world he knew all too well, men with money who thought they owned everything, including the people who worked the land, and though he had vowed never to get involved in anyone's troubles again, something about this woman's bravery, her refusal to abandon her children even when she herself was at the edge of collapse, struck him deeper than he expected. When she nearly fell, he stepped forward instinctively and caught her by the arm, and in that brief touch he felt how cold she truly was, how close she was to giving up, and without another second of hesitation he said the words he had not expected to say when he woke that morning, "Come with me." The woman blinked in confusion, her lips trembling as if she doubted whether she had heard correctly, but he repeated it firmly, telling her that she and her children would not survive another hour in this blizzard, and that he had a ranch not far from there, warm, safe, and stocked with enough food to last the winter. And though she hesitated, fearing she might bring danger to his doorstep, the rancher shook his head and said that no one who hunted women and children would ever step foot on his land without facing him first. Gathering the children close, he lifted the little girl with the curly hair into his arms, and she wrapped herself around him as if she had known him all her life, while the oldest boy took his hand with cautious trust, and the mother, exhausted beyond words, allowed herself to believe for the first time in months that someone might actually help without wanting anything in return. The storm grew fiercer as they made their way across the whitened fields, but the rancher walked ahead of them, breaking the wind with his broad frame, guiding them like a protector the children had never known, and by the time they reached the ranch house, its warm orange light glowing through frosted windows, the mother felt tears burning behind her eyes, because the glow looked like hope, something she had not seen since before her husband died. Inside, the fireplace roared, blankets were wrapped around the children, warm soup was placed in their shaking hands, and the rancher, still silent and steady, removed his hat and set it by the door, as though welcoming them into a life he didn't know he needed until that moment. As the mother watched her children thaw before the fire, she whispered a weak thank you, but the rancher simply nodded, saying that no thanks were needed, because sometimes the West wasn't just a place of hardship and lonely men, it was a place where fate crossed paths on frozen roads, where broken families found unexpected shelters, and where a simple choice, come with me, could turn a moment of desperation into the beginning of something the winter could not kill: hope, safety, and perhaps, one day, healing for all of them.